Hello friend, welcome back. In this video, I want to discuss about that submission form. Like here, I have already defined one of the form, and in particular that position, I have defined the three field. One is our full name, that is the date of birth, and the user email, right? So now here, if you put some of the name here, if you put some of the date, okay, and also I defined some of the user email address, click as a submit. Now you can see it's now showing some of the error as a forbidden error. Because when you actually submitted one of the form, it's actually defined some of the token. So you have to add some of the token into this form area. You can see they have also some of the instructions, that is actually our CSRF token. We have to add it in our post area. So I just simply copy it. Okay, I just simply copy it, and in our form HTML, so into the form HTML, so that is our form. So after this form here, we have to define our this CSRF token. And also into the form area, I'm just make the things empty. That means it should be redirected to our this same page. That means in our form HTML page, and here I define that method as a post. Okay, so better I want to define that as a capital post. So here I define as a post. That means when you click as a submit, then it should be redirected to our view page. Into the view page, I have defined already one of the function as a form function, right? So into the request, previously I have already created one of the objects. So that is with the form, our form user form. That means the user form, I have defined three of this field. One will be as a username, that is our user DB, and that is our user email, right? So that is all actually our name. So now I want to actually store all the data. So first of all, I want to store all the data, and then I want to visible all the data. So I want to visible all the data in our same page. That means in our form page. So if you want to display it, then you have to work in our view. That means here I want to defining it. So for doing this, that is our library. Okay, that means here I have already defining it. So after that, I just simply pass it in our form HTML page. So now I want to do, first of all, I want to check it. So if you want to check it, for doing this, I define one of the if condition. So here I define one of the if condition, and into the if here, first of all, I want to check it. So here that is our request. So with this request, I want to check it, this form data is posted or not. Okay, so that means here I define that method as a post from here. So now I want to define some of the condition as if our this request. That means if you want to define what different type of name, then you have to define this name in particular that area. Okay, that means into this form area, whatever the request, I just simply pass it. Whatever the request, I pass it from here. So now I want to actually check it. So for the reasons here, I define as if our this request is first of all, I define into the method. Okay, and that means so that means our method, or this method is post or not. So first of all, I want to check it as a post it or not. Okay, friend. That means if this method is post, okay, then if this method is post, then I want to create another object. So previously I have created this object, and this object is blank, right? So now I want to do in particular that position here, I have submitted some of the form data, because from to this position I want to define some of the information, like into the full name, I have defined some of the data. Into the date of birth here, I have defined some of the data, and also for the email, I have defined some of the data, right? So now I want to actually store all the data. For the reasons here, when it should be as a post method. So after that post method, I want to define another object. So I just simply define that name as a new form. So for this new form, I want to define right now all that our post data, I want to store it. And into the form, I have defined our forms, and that user, our form. Okay, that means in our user form, before that was actually empty. So now I want to store all the data. So here I take another object with these forms. I define our user form. Into the user form, I define all the requested post data. Okay, so I just simply define as a request. That means requested all that our requested post data. I just simply save it. And after that, I want to define another condition. So here I want to define another condition as if, I just simply define another if condition, if our form is valid or not. Okay, that means this form is valid or not. So for the reasons here, I define as our this new form. That means our this form is valid or not. So I just simply define as is, and then underscore valid. So I just simply define as it is valid or not. So after that, I want to define one of the variables. So here I have defined our all that form variable. So our form variable as this one, because here they have some of the data. So I want to take this field data, right? Because that is actually our text field data. So this data I want to receive. So for the reasons here we have to define our this variable. That means our this username variable. So I just simply define our this field name. That is actually the username. In HTML we define that things as a name, right? So if you, as I told you before, if you go to our page source, into the page source here you can see we define that name as a username, name as a user DB, name as our user email. So now I want to actually take it. So for the reasons here I define our username. So now here with this I just simply define as a new, and with this new form, and with this new form they have also one of the another method as a clean data. Okay, clean underscore data. So I just simply define it with this method, and into this method I want to get our all the data from our forms. So that is our forms data. I want to get it, and I just take the things on here. Okay friend, so with this clean data actually help you to get all the data from your forms. So for all that form data he'll be get, and I just take the things with this name as a username. And also we have to get all that our another field name. So better I just simply copy it, and now I just have the three field. I have another field as a user ODB, that means date of birth, DOB actually. So there is a user, the user DOB I just simply define as a user DOB. Another one will be as a user email. So I just simply define as a user email and the user email. Okay, and after that we have to pass it in our dictionary. So here we have to pass it, so because all the data we have to update it, and also we have to view it. So I want to visible that all data in particular that page. So for the reasons here we have to define that things with the diction. Okay, with the diction I just simply define as update, and into this update I want to update our field data. So our field data as a username, whatever the data actually I received from our form. So here I just simply define our username. So here I want to update it, so that our value will be as a username. So I just simply define our username. Okay friend, so now I just simply update it, and also we have to do the same things for our another all that field. So that is our another field will be as a user DOB, as a user DOB, as a user email, as a user email. And also here we have to define some of the key. Because of all here I have already get all that our field data, and also here I updated it. So now we have to actually pass all the data in our HTML, right? So here we have to actually visible it. For the reasons here I want to define one of the key in particular that position, and I just name that key as a form. Okay, form underscore submitted. So this type of one of the key I have defined, and I just define as some of the value as a ES. So this type of one of the value I have defined. So now I just simply define with this diction, and also I pass that things with this context and into the form HTML. Now we can actually visible it. So we can visible it with our this key, that means our this form submit data. So now go to our form HTML. So that is our form HTML, and here after this, okay, after this I want to visible it. So better after this form I define one of the HR tag. So I just simply define as the HR tag, and then after this I simply define one of the if condition. Okay, so here we have to define the percentage and double percentage, and into this position I define as a if, and then also we have to and it. So I just simply define our and if, the double percentage, and then the and if, right? So now in particular that area I have already defined one of the key. So our key name as a form submit data. So into this form submit data our total condition will receive. So now I just simply copy it. Our this key I just simply copy it. Now go here into the if condition. Here I just simply define our form submit. When it should be as a true, then it should be display our all that name. Like here I define as a p tag. Okay, into the p tag I define that name. Our name will be visible, and name will be visible with our, so I have defining it with our username. So I just simply copy it, and now here I just simply define our username. Okay, and also it will be display our rest of this field. Our rest of this field will be as a date of birth, okay, date of birth, and then also there is email. I just simply define as email. So our field name we have to define. So our field name as a user DOB, so that will be DOB, and the email, and that will be as a user email. I just simply copy it, and here it will be as a user email. Okay, friend. So I just simply updated our name, date of birth, and the email. Perfect. So if everything okay, it now should be displayed. Like here, if you click as a save all, first of all I want to check it. Yeah, everything is correct. Now go here, refresh this page. Now I want to define some of the name. Here I define some of the date, and also define some of the user email address. Click as a submit. Yes, now you can see, friend, now it's perfectly display our name as Aryan, and I just define that date of birth, and that is our date of birth is now visible. That is email, and our this email data is now perfectly visible in particular that position. So here I just simply define with the same page. So for the reasons in particular that area, you can say I define that action will be in our form HTML page. For the reasons I just make the things as a blank. So here I define with the if condition, with this token I get all the data, and now I just simply display our username, the date of birth, and the email. Perfect. So friend, that's all you have to do. I think you enjoy it very much, and there is very much important one of the part, how can add that submission into this form. So next video I want to discuss about more field example, so then it will be very much helpful to you. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.